Good evening, folks, and welcome to Neck and Neck, where Hannah and I are going to race you, or each other, obviously, to the answer to all neck problems. Obviously, we won't, but we are going to try and shed some light on the issues regarding neck, mostly with people, but also with horses. Maybe even mostly with horses and also with people. Knowing how this goes, it's hard to tell from the beginning. I have cheated out of this one as well as I could, seeing as Hannah has more experience with working on necks that don't do their job properly than I have. I have opted to more or less interview her on it, and I got one question. So what do you do to fix a neck, Hannah?
You evil man.
Yes, well.
But yeah, it's a good question, actually. Yeah, fix a neck, yeah.
I just came up with it, so yeah, it's great.
Mostly, when you look at people or horses with problems, they've got a stiff neck. And a stiff neck is often a weak neck.
Right.
And the problem with a stiff neck or a neck that is too light, and then when muscles that are cramping up, too tense, too short, people are like doing this with their shoulders, and the horses do that as well. Mm-hmm. And then it changes the way the horse or the person moves, and it changes the stability in the rest of the body.
Yeah, even in the rest of the neck.
Yeah.
It's important to notice here, I believe, that most of the time trouble comes from instability in the spine. Yeah. Which then creates stiff musculature. Because
then you try to, the body or the nervous system tries to stabilize the neck with like cramping up with their muscles.
Yes.
Instead of like taking away the problem where the problem starts.
Yeah. Quite often the problem can be actually in the spine as well. So so one of the whatever you call them, the little pillows between your vertebrae. Yeah. One of them can have been compromised in one way or another, and that makes them soft and unstable. And what then happens is that the body starts to try and compensate for that in some way or another. Sometimes it just says, this is painful, and that what's painful isn't that the thing is soft in itself, but the movements that then are created, which are micro movements between the vertebrae. There are quite a lot of experts working on spines who say that there is no such thing as just overall back pain
or
unspecified back pain. There is no such thing, and the same, of course, goes for the neck as well, we believe. And we are led to believe so by other experts, obviously. It's not something we come up with. But I thought it was important to point out that even if we talk about stiff musculature as regards the neck, for instance, quite often we will do the same thing about hips or the back or whatever. That doesn't mean that you are too good at stabilizing your spine. It's an important point to make, I find. Right.
Yeah, and it's important to say that, you know, we can't talk about everything about spines and necks and bodies in one stream. Like
you could stop the sentence earlier. We can't talk about everything in the body. Period.
But what we try to do is give you some ideas as what to focus on if you've got a problem with your back or your neck or migraines or something like that, and you get an idea that this might be something that you can do something about. And then you can go to your therapist and you go to your doctor, and if the doctor says you have to live with this, that might not be true. It might be that you can find ways to train and to move differently, and then become better. And if it's not possible to become better because you've got this, like an injury, that is really, you know, it's there's something wrong there that you can't just change. You can change things anyway that, like, makes it difficult for you to handle that situation. You can change other things that makes it more difficult. So you take away those other things, and then it's easier to cope with the things that can't change.
That is a possibility, yes. Quite often too, the spine will heal itself eventually. So, as we have tried to show already, is that the main problem is often instability somewhere. And this instability in the spine is what creates the pain. But this instability in the spine itself will heal over time, mostly. Most spines grow stiffer as we age, so mostly we grow out of that and grow into other problems like being too stiff throughout the spine, obviously. But hey, one evil might be better than another.
And another problem is that you know, I come from being I'm an engineer originally, and I was working with cybernetics. That it means, you know, the knowledge about how to control the system, and I'm looking at a body with those eyes, and when you see that this instability occurs, that is something that you need to stabilize. And the nervous system is sort of the software of the body, and the nervous system has this task of regulating the body so that you don't get that instability, because the nervous system needs to protect itself, protect the spine, so that you don't have these like shearing forces in the spine, in the neck, because that is really dangerous.
Shearing force means that instead of the spine compressing, it means that the spine glides like this. That's shearing force. And the spine isn't very happy when that happens.
Because there are nerves inside there, and they shouldn't be like...
Nerves are going through there, right? And if this slides forward like that, those nerves will be
So what happens
squeezed.
when you get like shearing forces like that, the nervous system just cuts down the movement.
Cuts down power to the movement, yes.
It says, you can't sort of kick off with your leg, so you suddenly run slower, or you get afraid. You get really afraid.
Or you can't lift as heavy as you would like to. That happens to some of us.
And sometimes you don't even feel the pain.
Yep.
You just wonder, why am I so much more afraid of riding now? I used to be so galloping around on my young horse and not afraid at all. And then now suddenly,
it could be that you were just young and stupid, obviously.
Yeah. But suddenly you're afraid. And then I often ask, what happened? How many kids have you got? Did you have any accidents? And then you hear that, I've got 3 kids, and I fell off my horse, and I got this injury in my back. Yeah, that is the reason why you're afraid. Because your nervous system knows that this is dangerous. It knows that, I got this back pain, and then you have this sort of...
it's a fail-safe.
Yeah, it's a fail-safe. It's what we call an interlock. So then, and then you get all these stiff muscles that are sort of...
Yeah.
You're becoming like this. I'm exaggerating now, but these muscles, they are sort of clamping you together, and you can't straighten up.
Yep.
So, and horses do the same.
Yep.
So we can talk about how to fix that. No, it's not that easy.
No, I think that we should link it. Okay, so we'll talk about the integrity of the spine. That's what we've talked about so far. So if the spine has an injury or has been hurt in some way, and most of us have, there's something somewhere between 80 and 90% of the population, the general population, struggle with back or neck problems sometime during their lives. Meaning, there has been a micro or macro injury to your spine at some time, some point in time. So it's important now that we're not scaring people away from moving or doing anything at all. We're going to try and empower people all of you, to move more. That's sort of the point of this. Yeah. But when the spine's integrity is compromised, that tends to slow down your athletic abilities in all other endeavors. So you can imagine that if you want to push power through the spine can't just collapse. If this is your spine and you try to push power through and it just collapses, it's impossible to get power through that thing. So you have to stiffen the spine first to be able to do that. And if the spine's integrity has been compromised, you can't stiffen it properly. And what the body is going to try to do then, it's going to try and stiffen what it can stiffen. For instance, if you've got a problem at the top of your neck, maybe your body will do this so that it can hold your head so it doesn't move on that particular little joint between two of the vertebrae there. And when it can't move on there, it doesn't hurt. But of course, if you run around like this, it's going to be really difficult after a while. But then, of course, if you keep doing this, your spine will actually become like this. That's not something your mother said to trick you. You might actually become like that after long enough time, obviously. Forkalkning, what's that in English, please?
Calcification.
Calcifications occur, thank you very much. And can happen in the spine as well. So now we're going to go from that and show just one quick example, easy example of what can happen. One of my shoulders has been a bit too forward like that. Falling down, wanting probably too much jousting, right? It isn't that, I hope, but
no, I think it's because
I had an injury there
in the
playing American football many years ago, about 100 years ago almost, I think. It was no, it was this century. No, it was last century, perhaps. I'm not sure, but anyway, it has that has made my whole neck go like this, so it tries to keep everything here not moving in relation to each other. Which meant that when bench pressing, my arms would do something like this. So one would do a weird sort of swing, rolling this shoulder forward, so I could keep it stable up here, or my body tries to keep it stable in here.
To protect yourself.
To protect my shoulder. Of course, the body isn't extremely intelligent in these cases. Sometimes it kind of screws itself over pretty bad. So what happened was that movement meant that I was limited to the power I could exert with some of the rotator cuff muscles and stuff like that, which is really not
tiny little muscles.
Little muscles that are trying to bench press. They weren't very good at it, believe it or not. But after some of these knutelösning, the knot loosening stuff that Hanna has been doing, she stuffed her fingers down here just on top of the clavicle, found some horrible muscles in here that hurt. And made me breathe while hurting. And afterwards, I went into my gym and I set a new bench press PR.
Yeah, you did.
I've done that two times at least. Straight from the bench out to do more benching. Sounds like bench presses is the only thing I do, which isn't quite true. But anyway, that meant that that injury spread to the neck, is what it feels like to me. Also, as many of you might have seen in photos or even live, sometimes when I ride like this. Not often, mind you. Okay, quite often, mind you. And it hasn't been. I can kind of put my head up. You can do this, or I can just right get up there. But all of this stuff, and also lots of other work that we do, but this allows a lot of that work. This is important. Makes me able to sit like that without tearing myself apart and becoming extremely stiff throughout my movement. So now the main problem is I forget, because I've become like this. This is what this is what my body knows to do now. When I leave it to its own devices, it rides like this, which is kind of annoying.
Your body rides like that.
Yeah, I don't, but my body does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that is what I call the man in the brain.
I don't have a man in my brain.
No.
My brain is empty.
But this is interesting, because you're talking about the sort of the automatic the movements that we do without thinking about it like consciously.
Yeah.
And if we had to consciously control every movement that we do, that you're like, which muscles am I using while I'm like lifting this glass, then that would be very exhausting. So that you don't, what you consciously do is like, I'm going to grab this glass and lift it up.
I don't even think that consciously. I thought
just
thirsty. Go.
Yeah, and
the brain knows what to do.
Yeah, the brain, the what I call, like, jokingly, you have got a man in your brain that sort of
the control switch guy. He's
got
this massive
with all
control
this,
board.
Yeah, with the controls to the muscles. Which muscle is doing this, and then you get this message to the man in the brain. Said, I want to grab this.
Are you saying this guy in my brain, this man in my brain, can multitask?
Yes, yeah, of course.
That's a one-of-a-kind man.
Can multitask much more than you can consciously, at least.
Yes.
Yeah, because consciously you can't actually just think of one thing at a time.
True.
Yeah, so if you're trying to multitask, you're actually just switching between. So when you're learning something new, and you learn 3 times at the same, you have to straighten up and then hold your hands there and relax in your legs. You have to switch between those 3 things.
And you all know that riding teachers do not limit themselves to 3 things.
But yeah, now we're actually going way beyond what we're going to talk about.
Neck,
yeah,
and neck.
So what we're talking about when we're trying to change your neck, because your neck was like this and my neck was like that as well, and that was another injury, but we were trying to straighten up our necks, so that the riding teacher can say, I can say to you, straighten up, you look forwards, look up, yeah, and then if your muscles are too tight, you can't. And you can force yourself, but then you get to stiffen the rest of your body.
Yeah, and it's like, it's the same as if I tell you, do the splits right now.
Or I'll shoot you.
Yeah, well, you just pull it.
Yeah,
pull the trigger.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
So, and then there are many reasons why. Because, the muscles are too short. We can talk more about that later.
Obviously.
And you've got something that is called fascia. That is sort of the bags that are around your muscles, and also like structures that go through all your body, and it's way too complicated to talk more about now, but fascia is important because they control this, they support your movement.
Support is the right word.
They support your movement and they guide your movement, so it's easier to do the right movement, and we're going to talk much more about that later. It's very important for both horses and people, and how we move. And you got the habit. The habit is like, we have this program that when I think about this class, I want to drink that water. the man in the brain starts a program. And the program is which muscles do we use in which sequence to lift this and not just slip it and not just do this and not, not spill the water.
Mm-hmm.
This accurate movement is in my brain, and I don't have to think about how to do it. So what you're doing when you're trying to straighten up this, but for instance, if you go and get like chiropractic treatment, they can while you're lying on this bench, you get this like this treatment that you really get this long neck. And once you get up and you walk a little, the man in the brain says, but this is wrong.
This is walking. Let's do the old program.
Yeah, let's do the old program.
Yeah.
So then after a while, after you're riding, especially riding, because you have learned how to do a canter pirouette or how to trot, and the trot is like this, then you're going to do that. Every time you start trotting, you have to relearn the movement. So what we're doing with the knutelösning, the technique that I was using on Pelle's neck, I was teaching your nervous system to breathe differently and not using these tight muscles to breathe in the wrong way. So when you
not only to breathe, but also
but
to
breathing is movement.
Relax. It is one movement.
Yeah. So while you're lying there, I'm teaching you. I'm talking directly to the man in the brain with input, and like cybernetic input into your brain, saying, no, you must not tighten this muscle while you're breathing
in or breathing out.
And when you've learned that, and the man in the brain has just pressed the save button, you get up and then it's changed. You got a new habit. That's what's happening. So, and then you can bring with you this new movement when you sitting on the horse, for instance, and then the man in the brain has just thrown away this useless pattern.
Yeah, it's important to note that we're not talking about a miracle.
No,
we're talking about some of the movements have changed.
Yeah.
But with one finger and 1 minute, you can't just fix yourself up and now you know how to. It's not the Matrix. We just plug in the program for a whole new skill. You have to relearn the skill as well.
Yeah, of course.
But it allows your body to move in a new and better way.
Yeah. A tiny little.
A tiny little bit better.
Yeah, because you can't change very much each time, because then it's too difficult. Then you would get dizzy and the nervous system would have trouble with too big changes.
Yeah, as with any training, too much, like if you just keep squatting all day long and all night long and all the next day, you're not going to go stronger and stronger.
So what we're talking about now is how to teach your nervous system that it's possible to straighten up, because all these things that we've been talking about, like getting more and more crooked because you've been hurt.
Yeah. Or
you've
whatever.
or I was talking about childbirth. That is also a very a big change or a big challenge to the body.
It can be simpler too. It can just be that your job requires you to sit in front of a computer screen.
Yeah,
or even your when you start school, you're seated for a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And it's extremely hard for the body to keep an upright posture while seated. It's very difficult to do it with any.
And then you got the habit.
Any success.
Yeah.
So then you start slump, for instance, and that becomes a habit, and that creates structures in your body. It doesn't create new structures, but it adapts your body to that way of doing things. So if you're sitting at your desk for 8 hours a day like this, and then you sit with your phone and in your car for a few more hours like this, and then you try to ride for 1 hour like this, all the other stuff is going to win. Muscles are like obedient dogs. They do what they are taught to do and do most.
And
do
they
it
get
many things
powerful
and they
in
get
that.
good at
Yeah.
that. So they become powerful in particular ways of moving. But that means also that some of the ways you move, like with this shoulder thing with me, some of those ways aren't smart.
Yeah, and that is the problem, because the man in the brain is not very good at fixing stuff. He's very good at protecting you. So he's like protecting you more and more.
He's very task oriented.
Yeah, he's not very strategic.
No, he'll be like this. Okay, I can still drink.
Yeah, and then you get more pain in that rotator cuff thing, so you can't do this. It just stops rotating. So you can't do this.
Can't get it over my head, but don't need to.
No,
I'll get a very long hairbrush.
Yeah, and then you got the pain in your head because this one is
yeah.
So it sort of gets worse and worse, and then you got therapists, of course. But many people say that I go to all these therapists, and it actually goes back again after the treatment after a while, and that is because the habit has not changed. You're doing the same movement.
So it's important then that we understand that if you want to change any trouble you have with your neck, say, or spine or movement, then you have to also try to create new habits. And that's really difficult because it means you have to do things quite a lot. If you want to make a new habit, you have to do it a lot. It's not enough to straighten up once in a day. It's good, please do, twice even, but you have to actually make changes in order to be able to.
If, for instance, if you're very stiff here, it's very difficult to straighten up, and you have to.
It's very difficult to stretch those muscles.
Yeah, because it's just like, a tent. I usually use this picture of, if you have got the tent with just one tent pole in the middle, and then all the pegs on one side are too tight.
All the ropes on one side, yeah.
Yeah, so that the pole is like this, and if this one does not need to have much strain, but this one gets really, really tired. You can pull and pull and pull, and nothing will happen, because these ones are so too short.
Yeah, and when they are shortened, they are in the state where they are very strong.
Yeah.
And when they are lengthened, they are in a state when they are not very strong.
Yeah. So that is what happens when you're all the muscles in the front. You've got some muscles that goes from here,
from the back of your skull, and down into
and
your
if they get
chest
too
somewhere.
short, they're like this. And some muscles are on the side here, and they also have this kind of effect that when they're too short, they pull your neck like this.
Pull your head forward
and your head forwards. Down. And if they're sort of locked in the short position, it's impossible to straighten up. And this thing sort of influences the rest of the spine as well. So you get this like hump on your thoracic spine.
Curvature throughout the spine.
Yeah.
So up in the cervical spine, the neck part, that will become if you turn your side towards the camera like that, and this upper part will curve this way. Then the next part will curve this way.
And then you can sway back.
This sway back as well. Because if you exaggerate one of those curves, the others tend to exaggerate as well. Tend to. It doesn't happen always, but quite often. So this whole neck thing, we found out a lot about it because we were looking at horses. And quite a lot of horses have very powerful neck musculature on the underside. And would you please tell us something about that?
Yeah.
What does that do?
We're talking about the top line. The top line of the horse is very important. And if the horse is very powerful on the underside of the neck, you could sort of talk about bottom line. That's not a very good thing, because the horse needs to carry itself by the top line, And then the top line is sort of a chain of muscles that go from the hind leg over the croup and over the back and through the neck muscles on top of the neck to the head. And every time the horse kicks off with the hind leg, the muscles of the top line is supposed to lift the front end of the horse out of the shoulders,
to some extent,
a little each time, so that you release, so that the stress on the front legs aren't that big. But like what's it called, antagonists?
The opposite muscle.
The opposite
like,
muscle.
This muscle does the opposite of what that does. So if this is really tight, this has a very hard job to straighten it out.
And sometimes if this one is locked, this one is sort of immobilized, or it's powerless.
Yes.
So what's happening with a too tight underneck is that you inhibit the top line.
All right. Oh, it sounded like I'd never heard that before. That was a lie. That was Sorry, guys.
I was a little like, what? But and that is, you can't make the horse move over the back if the underneck muscles are blocked.
No, they actually inhibit the top line then.
And sort of, it's what's it called when it's like it's like a positive feedback loop. It's like, it's sort of if the more you do it wrong, the worse it gets.
Yeah.
So
because of adaptation.
Yeah, because
so when you move in any given way, the structures that carry you in that given way become stronger because the body adapts.
Yeah.
So if you move with the underneck being tense and active, and the top line being inactive, then the underneck will become stronger and tighter, while the top will become looser and weaker.
Yeah, because if you put more weight on the shoulders, then the shoulders must carry more. So they're tensing up, and then the underneck goes like, we need to sort of try to cushion this fall down on the front legs, so it gets more tight. So the more you do that, the more the top line is sort of
inhibited.
Yeah, it's sort of locked out of the whole equation.
Yes.
So that means that we need to take away those tense muscles, or take them away, just loosen them up. So, and then teach the horse how to move without tensing up those muscles first, because that is what the habit is. Okay, tighten those muscles and then do it. No, relax those muscles and then move in a different way. And that is sort of a topic for a later stream, because that is a big thing, a long topic to talk about, how to train a horse to do that, or how to train a person to move without, the shoulders up in under your ears. Everyone knows that. Relax, let your shoulders down, move through the hips.
Head up.
Straight
spine. We all know how.
We know.
We all know how that we should. We just don't do it. And it's about creating habits, but quite often we are limited from creating habits by trouble. Let's just call it trouble in the spine. And the neck is one of those very important areas. And we believe this is because the neck is where your central nervous system is most exposed or vulnerable. The brain will always be number one on that list, but then it's the rest of the spine. And even if your brain works, if you break your neck very high up, if you break it high enough, it will end your life. If you break it lower, it cuts all all communication between the brain and the body. Obviously, that's why the neck needs to be taken very, very carefully care of.
Yeah.
And that is what these muscles try to do when we have encountered some sort of trouble.
Yeah.
So what we are talking about now is how to release this musculature here in the front of the neck. And that is quite difficult, and it is quite stiff in a lot of people. And what we have seen that do is we have seen it help people with all sorts of ailments and trouble.
Yeah.
So you being one of those. And we've also in sort of the other side of the spectrum, we've seen it change very strong or accomplished athletes
to become even
better at what they're doing, which leads us to believe that there is a lot left on the table here for anyone who wants to become a better rider. If you can sort out the health of your spine and move in a healthy, clean way, you will be much better at what you want to do.
Yeah, and there are many therapists that can help you with these things, of course. But then you need to train. You go to the chiropractor or the osteopath or who it is, or craniosacral or something like that.
Or the Knutelösning, or whatever you do.
You go to those, but then you have to train.
You
have to change the habit. You can't just, if you go to a therapy when you lie on the bench and then they get your atlas and your axis to move correctly, then you need to go home and try to change the way that you're moving, the habits, the man in the brain thing. And
that's why we always nag about go and make your hips mobile.
Yeah.
And now we're saying make your neck mobile too.
Yeah.
And we want you to make that mobile so that you can stabilize your spine.
And the same goes for the horse. The horse needs to be able, we call it positioning the horse, that is something that is I always learned that when I went to riding school. You need to, when you're bending the horse needs to be both positioned and bent in the body. And positioning means that the horse is able to do both this and this. So it's able to position its head to the side and also bend the neck like this. And those are the two first joints in the spine. The one of it is like saying yes, and the other is saying no. And you don't need to know which joint that is, because we're not surgeons here. We're not talking about exactly what muscles you're using, or
we can put it in another way. Those of you who need to know already do.
Yeah. So what we need to know as trainers and as athletes or riders is that we need to know that it's important to be able to turn your head. And it's important to be able to say like this movement.
And it's important to be able to move your whole neck back, not only.
Yeah, and stretch up and shoulders back. Everyone's heard that. But if you're too stiff here, it's impossible to do it. And have we got some exercises that you can do? Can you have you got some examples as to what exercises you would say to me? What can I do to maintain the good position that I can, perhaps change my posture?
If I want you to change your posture, I will almost always try to strengthen your back, your upper back, as well as your lower back. We will put in a link in the comments down below here where you can be guided by someone who knows this a lot better than we do, and you will be helped a bit by them. But what I would ask you to do that's quite simple is try to do some sort of face pulls. So try to use weights, lean over, or if you've got
Rubber
access
bands.
to a gym, use the gym. Obviously nowadays that's a bit hard for a lot of people, but rubber bands that we have shown earlier as well. If you can hook a rubber band up, grab it and pull it towards your face, make sure you use your whole back, so you squeeze your shoulder blades together, and also take that same band and tear it apart like this. Do that a lot. Lots and lots and lots and lots of them every day.
You gave me an exercise yesterday that was like bending forwards and doing this.
Yeah.
Is it difficult to show, perhaps?
Nah, you can. I'm not familiar enough with the movement that I really want to go into it deeply.
We can perhaps show that later.
We will be doing whole streams from the gym.
Yeah.
Later
True.
on. So exercises will be shown.
Yeah, but I can tell a little more about the way I'm pressuring on trigger points.
Yeah.
Like in the neck, and it's easy. You can do it on yourself. But you need training. But it's not dangerous. It's not. You just search for points or places on the muscles that are a little more painful than others, especially on the side here. You have to just search for it because it's individual where they are, but you know when you found them because you found suddenly, oh, there, it's more painful.
If it makes your eyes pop,
or
if you can feel the pain is referred to somewhere else, like if all of a sudden you feel weird in your arm or something like that, that is the definition of a trigger point.
Yeah, and then
it refers pain to somewhere else.
And then you just keep your finger on that point, and then you breathe just like yoga breathing. You just
breathe deeply in through the nose
and let it out through the nose. And it's also important to try to breathe with your whole chest, not just the diaphragm, because that one is the one is...
Breathe all the way in and all the way out. And when you think you're all the way in or all the way out, do a little more.
Yeah, but then you also need to expand your chest. Like
That's all the way in.
Lift here as well. Many people don't do that. We're talking about breathing with your stomach, like breathing with your diaphragm down into your stomach.
Should you be sitting up like this when you do this exercise?
You can do that. I do it while I'm driving the car, or when I'm reading, or it's easier when you lie when you're treating someone else. It's easier when you lie down, but you can do it on yourself. It's easier to understand this thing when you do it on yourself, and it's not dangerous because you can feel if it's wrong.
Yeah. If you keep breathing very deeply in and out for a long time, you will hyperventilate. Don't do that.
Yeah. So
don't sit in your car and hyperventilate.
It's just like a little maintenance on yourself.
Yeah.
And trying to get more acquainted with your body. And then you suddenly, many people say, I didn't realize I was so stiff here. I've never felt any pain here. My pain was in the head or in the back of my neck or in my lower back. But they found out that, wow, these stiff muscles actually are the reasons why I have pain in the rest of my spine. So, and when you do this, you're not pressing, it's not the pressure that is loosening up the problem, it's your breathing. It's how you breathe, and then when you breathe, and you can feel that it's more painful when you breathe, then you're telling the man in the brain that you shouldn't be tense in this muscle while you're breathing.
You need to tense up in the neck in order to breathe. That is necessary.
If you do it a little, then you will feel suddenly this pain goes away. And that is because the man in the brain has suddenly realized, oh,
I'll switch that off.
turn that on. I don't need to be tense there. And then you just move your finger to another place. And then you find a new place.
It almost sounds like you have created a habit of trying to relax your neck muscles.
Yes, it's exactly that. You created a new habit.
How
and
about
you've
that?
told you directly to the man in the brain. And the reason why I call it the man in the brain is that because the man in the brain doesn't know, it doesn't understand language.
It's an important point here too that, can I borrow your tent pole? So the tent pole is there, right? And we have found that these here, all of the strings on one side are too short. It's important then that you don't just become stronger on the back of the neck and in your back, like because you're gonna squeeze your tent pole into the ground if these muscles become as short and strong, right? So then the neck might even collapse even more. It's important to learn how to straighten back up.
So you need to be loose. You need to be looser here.
Yes.
And stronger there.
And then when you have got into a good position again, you need to be in the good position throughout the spine, neck being central, and then you can tense up around the neck in order to create the stiffness you need to become or to be or express athleticism.
This is the point where you need to talk a little more about the stabmo.
Stabmo.
Yeah, because I think it's important that we repeat that. We talked a little about it last time, I think. But the stability of the spine is sort of dependent on the mobility of the shoulders and the hip joints.
Yes.
And vice versa.
Yeah. The reason for that is that if, let us say, the typical fault, I'm going to stand up. The typical fault is this stuff in front here being short, right? So let's say that I can move my leg back to this position. I'll actually move it to, here you go. This is about as far as that can go without pulling my pelvis with it. So I can move the leg further back, but that means that my back is going to move as well. This is important because as soon as you have compromised the integrity of the spine like that, it can no longer be stable. As just in the same way as when your musculature in front has learned and become short and learned to be in this position, you can't just shorten the stuff in the back here and expect it to become better, because it's just going to pull your head into your in between your shoulders, right? So you have to be able to straighten up again. And that means that for any athletic endeavor, let us say riding, for instance, if you want to be really good at it, your hips have to be flexible enough that you can move all the way through, let's say, the extended trot stride without your leg pulling your pelvis into a compromised position. Because at that instant, your spine is no longer stable. And that stability of the spine is important for your health. It is important also because it will distribute the force generated by the horse in weird directions. So if your spine goes like that, it's difficult to say where the horse is going to go, because the horse isn't told by your balance, because there is no balance then. This isn't balance, this is wobbling. That's different. It's another thing, actually, completely. So the spine has to be, the spine must stay stable in its position. Doesn't mean it stays maximally contracted all the way around. That's not
balance.
That's not balance. We need to the stability needs to be measured out as to the needs from the movement you're trying to do.
And the interesting thing is that as soon as you get people to relax in their hips, it's easy to sit straight with your spine. And the other way around as well. If the problem is that they've got blocked hips, you suddenly, if you're managing to make them stabilize their spine, the hips loosen up. It's just like magic. But it's difficult because they are interconnected. Like it goes both ways.
It goes both ways. Both ways.
And it's the same with horses.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I often start with loosening the shoulders of the horse. And then first the neck, then the shoulders. And then the spine is starting to stabilize so that the horse can lift the front up for each step. And then the hind legs just start moving because the hip joints are sort of freed up.
I'm gonna put in a little, just a small insight from the sideline, sort of. We often talk about the wave feeling through the back of the horse. That's not the spine of the horse isn't just flopping forward. This is important to understand. It's not a jump rope. It's not sloppy. The trick is that when the horse has stabilized its spine well enough and is loose through the shoulders and hips, the spine will move. Doesn't really matter how.
It's sort of a crane.
Yeah, it moves like this because the hip joints allow it and the shoulder joints allow it.
Yeah.
So the spine is stable in and of itself, but the movement through the hips and shoulders of the horse make it feel like the spine is soft and moving softly. Of course, if the horse is moving freely, lightly, and well within its abilities, the spine shouldn't be stiff or tight.
No.
It's
stable and tight and stiff are two different things.
Yes, they are two different things. But let's say I want to set a new squat personal record.
Yeah, good point.
In that case, I want to be maximally stable throughout my spine. So I will go to quite some lengths to actually be able to get my shoulders in a position where I can hold them as tight as possible.
Imagine.
And hold the bar as tight as possible and create as much stability as I am able to through the spine.
Just like the horse in the Levad?
Just like the horse in the Levad or any other exercise where it needs to purvey a lot of power forward.
Yeah.
So in an extended trot, in any sort of acceleration, change of speed, in a, let's say, a canter halt transition.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever done a really good one of those.
Oh, everything's relative. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but the idea is that if you need to get then the hindquarters to carry an extreme amount.
Yeah, and then you need to
while the spine is stable. Yeah. But quite often the spine will drop somewhere, and that makes
because
everything
it's difficult.
hard. Yes, it's difficult. It's a difficult exercise.
Yeah.
Right. So make the neck relaxed in you and your horse, the under neck.
And make the neck relaxed before you start moving. Because if you tense up there first and start moving, then you're in the wrong movement pattern.
Yep.
So both the human, the rider, and the horse needs to relax there first and then find out how to move without tensing up there.
Yep. It's not easy.
No.
But it's doable, and when you do, it is very rewarding.
Yeah, because then the movement gets so much softer.
Yeah. Quite often you can hear people laughing.
Yeah.
Just as that happens, they start laughing. That's funny.
Yeah.
I didn't
gets
believe
so
in that,
much more relaxed.
but I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've felt it. I've laughed myself. Any questions today? Or are we just rambling around? Nobody dares ask anything? No questions? That's cool.
How's time?
About 5 more minutes.
Not bad. And I haven't got any questions down here either because I've been talking all the time.
Good.
Should we talk about the next session that we're going to have?
Oh, we're gonna start a new series of streams now. It's gonna be a collaboration.
Yeah, we've invited someone.
Yes. We invited a farrier who's coming here to tell us about hoofs.
Yeah. And this farrier, she's riding, she's one of our students, so she knows what we're thinking about movement, and she's got some ideas as to how the hoof and how we are taking care of the hoofs is influencing the movement and vice versa.
That's going to be way over my head. It's going to be interesting.
We're going to learn something, and we're trying to discuss the same way as we've been discussing today. So we haven't got any scripts or anything about that like that, because we really want to learn something ourselves.
I think maybe Ida has she's been preparing, I believe.
Yeah.
But of course I haven't.
No, neither have I. We're going to learn something together with you.
It's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
So I think that's all for today. That was a little bit of neck and neck. There will be plenty of exercises and all that sort of stuff coming. We can't cover everything in every stream, unfortunately. But before we leave, I want to ask you all to please shoot some questions for us in the comment section of the, what do you call it, of the next stream.
Yeah, do it in advance.
Yes, or even just message us some questions, and we'll see if we can get ourselves organized enough to actually get them in the stream as well. I think that's all for tonight.
Yep.
Thank you guys for tagging along. It's been fun to have you.